Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. It is June, I almost called it May, June 5th, 2022, and this is episode 124 of the Workshop podcast. And tonight we have Matt, the Agorist tax advisor. And we got here we go, 1 second. There we go. Sorry guys, we got a little feedback. Trying to get this Telegram thing to work every single time, and it's still not quite doing it. Here we go. Okay. So anyway, we've got Matt coming on tonight to give us some. Wow. There we go. What a good night, guys. Going to be a good start to the show. Sorry about that. So tonight, our guest, let's try this again, is Matt, the Agorist tax advisor. A guy I consider a friend. I had some really good conversations with him at the LFTN Spring Workshop. And in just a minute, we're going to pick his brain and he's going to tell his story. That's always the goal here on the workshop. Real quick, we'll get the housekeeping out of the way. Number one, if you're not part of the Telegram group, come by and join us. If you're part of this community, we want you over there. It is absolutely the same. It is the place to stay up on the happenings in the workshop. Number two, if you're in the Camden, Tennessee area next weekend, it is the Self-Reliance Festival. Friends of mine, Nicole Sauce and John Willis, are putting it on. There's a few, I believe, last I heard, there's a few advance tickets left online. If there isn't, they're going to have some door tickets, but there's going to be some really cool, interesting, freedom-minded folk there. So drop by, pick up a ticket and go. And this Friday, so you guys seen that I had the time wrong this morning for the show. Sorry about that. But just to boot, we have Rick Austin of Prepper Camp coming on this show Friday. So it's going to be a special day and a special time. In order to get him to come on, we worked around a schedule for him. It's going to be 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and it's going to be Friday night. So don't forget. I will blast it out on social, but I just don't want you to forget. It's going to be an awesome, awesome show. And finally, today's tool is the 8-in-1 plumbing tool. I showed that on social the other day. Letty Lou wanted some more information, so I figured it'd be time to share it. It's under $15. It looks like a plastic stem, and it makes all those really tight connections underneath the sink super easy to hook up. So if you're looking for the Amazon link, it's pinned here in the description today. And with that, let's bring on Matt. Hey, Matt, how are you, bud?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you. I still trying to get the hang of that Telegram thing. It streams just a little different, and then it just starts feeding back. So one of these nights we'll get it working without a hitch. But anyway, so how you been?
Been really good. Busy week, but nice, relatively relaxing weekend for once. So
you guys it wasn't this weekend, but last weekend was Memorial Day, was it?
Yeah, that's Monday was Memorial Day. So some people, they kind of take the whole weekend off. No, my family is always like, let's do something every day of the weekend.
That's kind of what we do too. We work hard and then like party hard. In other words, we work hard on the weekend too, but our weekend, the weekend before was called, it's called Victoria Day. We call it May 2-4 weekend, but because it's the official start of party season in Canada. But I know this will be hard to believe, but we celebrate the birth of a queen that's been dead for 150 years or 100 years or something. So it sounds very Canadian, doesn't it?
Every country has their own special things they do that don't make sense, even to those people, and especially to people from other countries.
Ain't that the truth, So, I mean, we chatted a bunch at LFTN, and it was an awful thing because I loved talking with you, but it always felt like I never had enough time to talk to the people I wanted to talk to. I don't know. Did you feel that way there too at all, or did you get some time in?
Always. It's like there's not enough time, and I'm not getting some feedback.
Are you? I'm not getting it on my end here.
Anyway, yeah, there's just like, I mean, if you spent the whole weekend with 2 people, it wouldn't be enough time.
Yeah, I know. It's awful. And there's so many good people there. So many people you want to pick their brain. We basically got 3 days to just sit and chat with one another. And it's awesome. But yeah, it's tough, So do you want, I want to start, tell us a little bit about who you are, Matt, where you came from, where you grew up, what your first job was. I always like hearing that.
So I was born in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
Very young. Parents moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And then when NORAD mostly shut down in 93, we moved to Dallas, Texas.
Oh.
And so I've basically lived in Texas since then, with the exception of 2.5 years for law school. My first job, I got a job working in a farmer's market. Well, a farmer's market.
Okay.
It was actually like it was like a grocery store that just sold fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
But the owner would go around. She had a farm, and she would go around to the nearby farms every day and pick up stuff and bring it in to sell. But also, like, she'd get stuff shipped in from all the big companies, from California and whatnot. Yeah, I was 15, and it was actually a really good job. And I was a moron and didn't stay there very long.
Would you remember how much you were making an hour back then?
It was whatever the minimum wage was, which at the time I think was $5.15 an hour.
Okay, that was what I made minimum wage my first job too. That's cool.
But like we had a good boss. She, we'd take lunch and we'd get paid for lunch about once or twice a week. She'd send us to the butcher next door with half a dozen tomatoes and a couple of heads of lettuce, and we'd come back with some lunch meat and we'd have lunch on the house. And it was a good place to work. I remember very distinctly the most fun job was we had to unload the watermelons from the truck, and we didn't have a machine to do it. So the way we did it was I stood in the truck and I threw them one at a time to the guy who was not on the truck.
Fair enough.
And I only hit him in the head once.
Did you ever accidentally drop one?
So we were allowed one broken one with no penalty.
Okay.
And if one happened to get broken, that was the one that got cut open for us.
Fair enough.
But one was going to get cut open for us anyway, so we didn't want to drop it because then part of it would be useless. But yeah, every time we did that, we cut up a watermelon and the whole shop would share it for the rest of the day, basically.
That's cool. Ted McDonald here, he's a buddy of mine from Florida. He said, youngsters, I got $3.25 an hour on my first job. We won't say anything like that, right? So, and let's shout out. Who do we got tonight? We got Brian from the Lots Project. We got Martinson family, who was also here at 8 o'clock this morning. Very committed. Appreciate it. Rachel Brown, who was in last night for the show. And yep, that seems like who we got so far. So yeah. So then you, did I see that you did your undergraduate in, was it computer science?
So I was a math major, computer science minor at the University of Dallas in Irving, Texas. Yeah. So I don't necessarily fit in with all the other attorneys because I'm very comfortable with math, very comfortable with technology. Like I tell everybody, like compared to all my computer friends, I'm a moron, but compared to all my lawyer friends, I'm a genius when it comes to computer stuff.
So are your coworkers always coming to you like, hey, Matt, can you help me with this? Or
well, so my day job, we actually have an IT department that's pretty good. So they handle most of that. But definitely there have been some earlier places where it's like I had to figure out what the problem was because nobody else is going to. But no, the other thing is a lot of lawyers are just completely Luddites. Like it's scary how conservative some of them are. So I was licensed in 2009.
Okay.
And a friend of mine who went to law school with me went to a law firm that didn't have internet.
Really?
In 2009. Because, well, the staff will just waste their time on it, and the attorneys, well, they can just walk across the street to the courthouse if they need to do some research.
Oh, my. In 2009.
And the same year in my company, we were running multiple different OSs, including we had one computer still running Windows 95. Which had been stopped being supported about 4 years before. So it was a major security issue.
Was it because they had software that could only run on that, or what? Like just didn't.
It was just the computer still works for some definition of works. And why do we need to waste money on a new computer?
So where does that Luddite mindset come from in law? You would think lawyers would want any advantage they could get, wouldn't you?
Some do. But again, it's especially when you have the people who are maybe 10, 15, 20 years older than I am, it's more prevalent. But just like not much change in the practice of law from, 1700 till 1900.
I suppose.
I mean, and even after that, it's like, okay, we have phones and we have typewriters, we have fax machines, but, still like it wasn't that different. And really the internet did change everything. And then even more so with COVID, doing a lot of stuff over Zoom and remotely, which we could have been doing for 20 years, but nobody wanted to do it because we have to learn a new system. But no, it's kind of terrifying just how backward some law firms are.
Have you ever watched Better Call Saul at all? Or
I can't watch any lawyer shows. They annoy me too much. I'll say Law and Order is good, and The Practice was pretty good.
That's actually kind of cool to hear you say Law and Order is good, because that show, I love that show, but a lot of people shit on it, right? So
I mean, they're not totally accurate, but they at least they obviously had lawyers involved who knew what the hell they were talking about.
Sure.
There are things in there, they make references only somebody who's been to law school would get. And they actually they use the terms. I also like that they didn't treat people like idiots. They just use a term.
Yep.
And it's if you know what this means, great. And if you don't, well, we're not going to stop and explain it to you.
Well, I got 42 minutes, right? So
yeah, it actually there was an Apple movie that came out 2 years ago called Greyhound.
Never
that was
seen it.
Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And they did that. It's this naval show. But my favorite part is they're just we're just going to say what people on the ship would have said. We're not going to stop and explain this because everybody on the ship knows what this means. And if you can't keep up, well, watch it again because you'll figure it out.
I appreciate that. I like movies. I mean, they talk about it, but pop culture in general almost feels so dumbed down at this point for the masses that, there's no learning involved anymore. It's it's the lowest common denominator, and we're happy with that, right?
Yeah.
The reason I brought up Better Call Saul was his brother, I guess, he was a successful lawyer, but he went a little off the deep end. He would have been kind of an extreme Luddite. He kind of he had an aversion. I think it maybe was even a psychological condition where he lined the inside of his home with tinfoil and was basically trying to keep all the signals out. It was just, I'm wondering now if that maybe was a bit of a play on, some lawyers' aversion to technology.
It absolutely may have been. Another example, I knew an attorney. He was a fantastic attorney. He's an attorney I would have hired. I would have recommended people go to him if they didn't want me for some reason. He retired 5 years ago. He never sent an email in his life. The emails would come in.
Okay.
His paralegal would print them out.
Okay.
She would put them on his desk. He would dictate the response, and then she would type up the answer and send it back.
That's incredible. How old of a feller would he have been? Or is he?
Older 60s when he retired. He'd be in the 70s now. Okay.
So, I mean, but you and I, our age, the internet, we can remember when it came around, but I mean, I hate to date ourselves, but it's coming on 30 years here. It's well over 25 years since, the modern kind of internet's been around. So somebody who's in their late 60s, they would have only been in their early 40s when the internet came around. That's how old we are now, we're in that ballpark. So
yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely no new firms are doing that. Some of the old established firms do. And some of the old established firms have been great about keeping up.
Sure.
There are some attorneys who are great about getting, there's always that danger, right? You don't want to get the brand new thing that maybe doesn't work.
Yep.
But once, this works, some of them are really good. The firm I work for, my day job, are really good about constantly what's the best way to solve this problem? And they realize if we can save 5 minutes to every employee every day, how much money does it save us?
Right.
And it's a big number.
And
it's going to cost us $10,000 to do this. Okay, we'll make that up in a month.
That's awesome. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and I get the aversion to technology to an extent because it takes work to learn something new. Even something as simple as a new social media platform or a new way to edit a video or whatever it happens to be. It's the whole old dog new trick type thing. It gets tough, and I get it. I know. And the older I get, the slightly harder it becomes. But I guess we got to stay open to it, right?
Yep. How's the TikTok going?
Exactly, right? So yeah, that's what I was thinking when we were talking about it. But actually, it's pretty good, And here's another thing. So when I shoot my review video, so my every Wednesday tool review video, I make sure it's done a couple of days ahead of time. I've got a guy, a person on Fiverr. I send my YouTube video to them, and for less than $15, in 3 or 4 hours later, they send me back a 30 to 45-second TikTok video that is 10 times better than I could do, and save me 2 or 3 hours worth of work. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? So I do some of my own, but mostly they do my Wednesday video. I just shoot it normal and then have them edit it into a small video. And so, yeah, old dog, new tricks, but it's working.
Yeah.
So then you said you did computer science. What's the typical kind of path for a lawyer? Like what do lawyers normally take as an undergrad?
A lot of them take politics or poli-sci or economics or history, a fair number of English majors. I know some of the newer various gender studies or racial studies are getting kind of popular. It's actually part of why I went to law school in some ways. I planned on being a math teacher, math professor, something like that. And I didn't get into a research program my last summer, which is going to make that a lot harder.
Sure.
And so I was talking with a friend. It was a New Year's Eve party. And he was the guy I went to high school with. And we were kind of on the same path. And he mentioned that he was going to go become a lawyer because, like, when you look at people going into law school, maybe 10% are math and hard sciences.
Right.
When you look at the top 10 or the top 20 graduating class, it's usually 50-50.
Really?
Like, people who are math and science tend to do well in law school. It's partly, I think, the logic, partly the rigor.
Yep.
Especially the math, like actually having to build an argument. Some of the science, again, the experimentation, does this work? No. Does this work? No. This works. Great. And just, again, I'd also gotten interested in politics right about the same time. And so I figured, I'll go to law school and I'll save the world by being a constitutional lawyer.
Yeah. We all think, well, I mean, politics. My son's big into politics right now. And I see him doing exactly what I used to do. Worry about politics, So how did that go? How did the constitutional lawyer thing work out for you?
Probably of the people who go to law school, I'm going to say 95% are either there to get rich,
yep,
or to save the world as some sort of a constitutional law or public interest lawyer.
Okay.
And there is, for con law, there are basically no jobs. Like, if you are top of your class in Harvard, maybe you'll get a job doing that.
Okay.
And then, of course, a lot of the other kind of feel-good jobs don't pay as well. Legal aid can be very fulfilling.
Sure.
But, you're going to make $30,000 a year. And if you have $100,000 or $200,000 in student debt, that's going to be a problem.
You're not going to dig out from under that, right?
No. And thankfully, I had almost no student debt due to parents who helped me out, and then a boating accident that funded most of my college, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. But is that why you get into personal injury eventually, or?
Actually, it made me even less likely to do personal injury.
Okay.
So I basically said, well, if I can't do con law, I'll do criminal defense. And at least there's constitutional issues there. I really do believe in the system. I really do believe, like, even if somebody did it, the defense attorney's job making the prosecution prove they did it protects us.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, at some level, I know several criminal defense attorneys that, like, it's actually almost easier for them when the person did it, because if they lose, they don't feel so bad.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's like they're still going to do their best to get a not guilty verdict. And so I found a firm, and basically I didn't know any lawyers other than my lawyer.
Okay.
I didn't have any family friends or anything. So I basically just did a marketing blast. By mail.
Okay.
I sent out 60 and it wasn't even an application. It was a single page. On one page, it was like, on one side, it was like my resume. On the other side, it was basically a marketing pitch of, give me a shot. You have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And literally
cool.
It was like, I'll work for minimum wage for a month and I'll quit after a month if I'm not working out. And also I remember I printed on like goldenrod paper. So it really stood out.
Love it.
And like, I had multiple people contact me. It's like, we're not actually hiring, but we're going to hold on to this because this is creative thinking at least. And like, if we have something open up, we'll give you a call. But one of the firms that contacted me, they were looking for personal injury, but they had criminal defense. And I'm like, well, yeah, like when there's opening or when there's work, you can do that too. And so I took that job.
Yes, sir. So that's cool. I like that because, well, you thought outside the box, and even in law, you thought outside the box. You know, I think that's really cool.
And I mean, I thought outside the box, but actually, I mean, I got it from some book.
Okay.
And like the book is so old, and I followed the template so much, I didn't even put my email address on it because it wasn't there in the template. And yeah, I was like, oh, I really should have done that. I probably would have gotten a lot more contacts if I put my email there. But well, live and learn.
I always loved. Did you ever see the movie American Psycho with Christian Bale?
I've not seen the whole thing. I've seen clips of it, but I generally don't like thrillers or scary movies. So
when you talked about using a special paper and that sort of thing, there's a scene in there where they all fawn over each other's business cards, how thick the stock is, how raised the type is. And I just thought, yeah, it reminded me of that. That's cool.
Oh, I know people with metal business cards now.
Really? Oh, that's cool. Was it Think and Grow Rich?
No. I actually have not read all of Think and Go Rich. And I had never read any of it before then. No, it was Dr. Gary North, who passed away very recently.
Okay.
But he had a really good business site for decades. And it was a book he recommended. And it's like, you can't buy this book. You have to buy it used to find it. Because even then it was, not in print anymore. But
sometimes those are the best ones.
So yeah, again, like not the best of advice given the changing of times, but it worked. Said like literally, like I've since spoken to the people who hired me, and they were like, there was one person who was like, his credentials aren't that good, we don't want to do it, and they take me out of the pile. And then the other part was like, but look what he did. Like he's got interesting ideas, and we always say we're looking for people who think outside the box, and he did it.
Yeah,
let's at least give him an interview. And so I kept getting put back.
Nail interviews usually. Sorry, cut you off.
I don't know. It's easier to interview now. And again, some of your listeners don't know me. I have a day job doing personal injury. I work for another attorney. I work 40, 45 hours a week. And then I've got my own business doing tax advice on the side. In personal injury, I'm pretty well known in my local area. I have some special certifications that are very hard to get.
Cool.
And so my last couple of interviews have been very much kind of not, are you going to hire me? It's, am I going to accept the offer you're going to make me? Nice. And that makes interviewing a lot easier.
Takes a little bit of the anxiety out of it, I suppose.
But it's like, there's a few things I haven't done in personal injury. I haven't worked on any, like the mass torts or the class action cases types things.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I haven't done any product liability cases, but anything else, I've done it at least once, and I've gotten good results, and I solve problems. Like as an attorney, that's my ultimate job: is I solve problems.
You've got that math brain, right? That's cool,
and that's definitely part of it. And it's also a gaming brain. I love games, and I turn it into a game. What's the how do I solve this problem? But I make it a game for sometimes what's the weirdest way I can solve this problem?
What type of games do you play?
I am a huge nerd. I still play Dungeons and Dragons.
That's cool. Yeah.
Although actually Pathfinder 2 is my preferred game these days.
Okay.
But I'm actually literally in the library where I have my comic books and my gaming books right in front of me. So yeah, we've got, I don't do much computer games, but like last night, 6 of my friends and I got together and we played Ticket to Ride and Puerto Rico.
I've played that.
And Citadels is a game we play a lot. It's a card game.
Okay.
So like we don't do like Monopoly or Risk or anything like that, but like kind of some of the more modern games that are a lot more fun to play.
We started playing, I think it was called Pandemic, about 6 months before COVID started. So yeah. And I didn't know, we talked, and I didn't know you're a comic book geek too. What are your, what's your favorite? Who, as far as character or story?
Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's cool.
Spider-Man, always Spider-Man.
Did you grow up on Todd McFarlane? Back in the day, or not so much?
The Spider Slayers arc, the original Spider Slayers arc with the robots was like when I started reading. So that's maybe cool. 2-3 years before Maximum Carnage.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a Batman guy myself, but I dig Spider-Man too.
And then actually, so it started coming out maybe 98, 99. They did the whole Ultimate series, which was like a reboot.
Yep.
And I literally bought every one of the Ultimate Spider-Man and the Ultimate X-Men trade paperbacks. Oh,
yeah. I like trades. I always enjoyed getting them that way because you could read, 6 or 8 comics at once and wait for them
and they didn't get destroyed on the cheap paper Yeah,
and they look better. They have a spine, so they look nice on a bookshelf,
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody appreciates that sort of thing, but I do,
I do. I still read them, and I want to be able to find the one I'm looking for.
Absolutely. So, okay, you said you were kind of wanting to get into, was it constitutional reform or constitutional law or
constitutional law, which again, most of that is going up, arguing in appellate courts or the Supreme Court about what does this law, First Amendment issues and freedom of speech, very rarely gun issues, much more commonly, search and seizure, or now the biggest thing is, when the cops do something, even are you allowed to sue them or not? It's a horrible, horrible rule called qualified immunity, where like literally a cop can like basically beat someone half to death and you can't sue them because there's not a specific rule saying a cop can't do that.
I want it, but it doesn't work anyway. Oh, good. It doesn't work that way for Joe Blow citizen, though, does it?
Oh, no. If anybody it's any government employee actually can get this qualified immunity. But it's usually cops because they're the ones who are confronting people when there's altercations. So a lot of work is done on that. A lot of work is done on civil forfeiture. Okay. So if they suspect you're a drug dealer, they'll just take your stuff.
Yep.
They won't criminally prosecute you. They'll just take it and then technically they're suing you, but you have to prove your innocence. They
call it tax evasion. Is that common? Because
tax evasion is different.
Okay.
So tax evasion is specifically when, the government says taxes are owed and you don't pay what they say is owed.
Okay.
This is more, again, it was designed to apply to like drug dealers. Like, oh, hey, you've made millions of dollars selling drugs. We're going to take the profits of the sale, which makes sense if you've convicted the person of the crime.
That's
in theory.
Right.
But there's ways they don't have to actually convict you of the crime. They can just take it. And in particular, now mostly in America, it's like some guy has $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 in cash going to buy a car.
Yes.
Gets stopped by the police, and the money gets taken by the cops.
And that just pads their bottom line. I mean, goes to the overall budget, or where does that money go?
So, and that's part of the really bad thing in a number of cities and states. That money goes directly into the police department's budget.
Isn't that a conflict of interest?
I'm just saying. In a few other places, it goes into the city's budget, which is still a conflict of interest.
Yes.
One of the reforms a lot of states have done is, okay, no, it's going to go into the state fund. So it's not benefiting any of the cops directly or the city directly. And that is an improvement. They should just get rid of it, but
we can't fix them all, can we?
So yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And again, it's so specialized. And at this point, like, even if I wanted to do it, like, I'd be behind. Like, the people that do this have spent the past 20 years doing this.
So how did you go from from that then into, because you mentioned on your Agorist tax advisor site that you kind of leaned into libertarian, and then I assume if you call yourself an Agorist, then you would be a voluntarist, or do we use the scary word anarchist or not?
Oh, I absolutely use the word anarchist all the
Okay,
time.
good. Didn't want to get you in trouble.
No, I actually I almost never use voluntarist. I understand why people do. It just seems mealy mouthed to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a great college, the University of Dallas,
Okay.
which a lot of people think is the University of Texas in Dallas, different school. The University of Dallas is actually in Irving. It's a Catholic university. And when I went there, it had one of the best Austrian economic departments in the country.
Really?
4 of the 5 professors were very much in the Austrian school. One was Dr. Samuel Bostaff, who had corresponded with Murray Rothbard.
Yeah, that's
had
cool.
been in one of Mises's seminars. And then one of my best friends, and actually the president of the gaming club, was a huge libertarian.
Okay.
And he's now a college professor at Texas Tech. And he basically convinced me. And actually, literally, we were driving to Gen Con. And by the time we got to Gen Con, I was like, oh, yeah, we should be libertarian. I get it. Cool.
That's neat.
And yeah, just I started reading everything. I took a bunch of economics classes. I found Tom Woods.
Yep. You see Hunter there. He says he's local and he didn't know about the Austrian. Yeah, that do they still have a fairly strong presence there, or has that gone the way a lot of places have?
They still have at least one person there who is very good Austrian, and even the non-Austrian who are a lot saner than a lot of economists, I think.
Sure.
But yeah, I literally, it was my freshman year to sophomore years that summer. And it's honestly, I even considered changing my major to be math and economics, double major. And it just, there were classes I had to take for both that were at the same time. Didn't really work out. But yeah, and I'm very cerebral.
Yeah.
I'm not the libertarian who's out there, at the range every week shooting. I'm getting into some of this animal raising and gardening stuff, but it's not my forte. I can change the oil in my car, but I'm not very good at it.
That's okay.
But you put a book in front of me, I read it, I remember it. Years later, it's not photographic memory, but it's kind of related to that. I have very strong visual retention.
Okay.
And so I just spent the next 3 years in college just reading every single libertarian book I could find and going down the rabbit hole. And yeah, about the time I got to law school, it's I guess I'm an anarchist. Okay.
I mean, I think Jack's the one that says it, but what's the difference between a libertarian and an anarchist? But 2 or 3 years or something like that, it's
Yeah. Not everyone, but and some kind of waffle back and forth, but definitely is the people I think who are interested in the theory of it, like I was.
Yes.
There's no way to dig into the theory and not. Yeah.
I think the ones that are into the politics tend to stay more in the libertarian mindset. Whereas, like you said, the people who are more into the theory behind it maybe move on. I don't know. It's hard. I get it. I think I grew up as a conservative, and I think I was probably a closet libertarian for a long time and didn't realize it. And then as I come along, I'm like, oh, but once you jump into the libertarian end of things, it's hard to stay there because your whole mindset is, geez, I really don't like government, So what's the logical conclusion but anarchy? And not scary anarchy that everybody uses the term, that's what I hate about language is it's relative and definitions change over time. And, the word anarchy said all the time now, and people, oh, you mean like hackers and James Bond villains? Well, not quite, but
Yeah. But then again, Michael Malice put out his book last year. The Anarchist Handbook, I think that was the number 2 seller on Amazon.
Okay.
Not in politics, on Amazon.
Okay, that's
the number
crazy.
2 seller.
Anarchist Handbook, you called it?
I think so. It's anarchist something, and it's Michael Malice.
Michaelmalice.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. We'll put it in. I'll put it in the notes there, or in the comments, so people, because I'm always
just
looking
a
for a good
collection
read.
of essays.
Okay.
And like some of them are socialist anarchists, and some of them are libertarian anarchists, and it's really cool. The audiobook, he actually has different people reading each of the sections.
Ooh.
And he actually spent a lot of time picking who was going to read what.
Okay.
And it was like all people he knew, and he handpicked them. But like literally, this book came out just over a year ago now. Yeah, it was like #2 on Amazon for like a day.
That's with the name anarchist in the title. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I like so, and it wasn't the authors of the essays that read them. He picked other people to read them.
No, because most of them have been dead. Like some of these are from like it's got Lysander Spooner in it, and it's got some of the socialist union organizers from like the 1920s.
Oh, I got to check this out. I always love a good recommendation.
And it's got Murray Rothbard in it, and it's got some more recent ones, but in fact, I think it's Anatomy of the State.
Okay.
By Rothbard is there. But it's literally, it's like, this is what anarchy has been, and it's not right or left. It's all types of anarchy, but we can learn from each other, basically.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, so Michael Malice is a cool guy. He's a professional troll on Twitter as well, and is just hysterically funny when you know he's trolling people.
He likes to get under their skin a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, not super obvious about it. I like that. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, the best way to get banned by him is to tell somebody that they're being trolled by him.
Okay.
Like on Twitter, like that you insult him, whatever. You tell somebody, you ruin the joke. No, you're gone.
Okay. That's cool. Everybody keeps talking about Twitter. Maybe I should slide over there, and I don't know. Is it worth it?
I'm not on Twitter. I have a Twitter profile. I have spent half an hour on Twitter. I don't get it.
Okay. I guess I'm not missing out too much then, but just, I don't know, whatever. You can only invest in so many platforms, right? Until you're burned out or spreading yourself too thin.
Definitely.
So you don't love government. You kind of move between the libertarian and then to the anarchist. And so then, of course, what's a lawyer to do? But I don't know, help people pay less taxes? Where did that come from?
So that came out of a couple of different things. So I had about 2 years after I became a lawyer, I actually started a law firm with a partner.
Okay.
And it was moderately successful. We were making enough money to worry about taxes. And so I spent a lot of time looking into like, how do I pay less taxes? Because,
sure,
if I can find $1,000 in savings, that's $1,000 in my pocket. I had some family stuff come up, had to leave that firm. My former partner is still running that firm today.
Okay.
Then I got into real estate. So I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've tried to start businesses since I was 10.
Awesome. I love it.
I took sodas in a cooler to school to sell on the school bus back to other kids.
How'd that work out?
Pretty well, until my parents pointed out I needed to pay them for the sodas if I was going to do that.
Friggin' parents. I get it. Yeah. That's awesome.
But so one of my successful ventures was I got into real estate. And there's a big part of why real estate works in America is the tax savings.
Okay.
And there's some very unique tricks you can do in real estate where it's like actually one of the few places where it's possible to make hundreds of thousands of dollars and pay nothing in income tax.
Yes, sir.
Not everybody can do it. There are rules that apply, but eventually you'll pay taxes, but like you can defer those taxes for years or decades.
Okay.
And then it was that jerk Jack's fault.
Same reason I'm doing this. Yep.
So I was incredibly fortunate. I went to his November workshop in 2020. I barely got off the waiting list. Like literally, it was like the Monday before, and he was like, "I got an email, and it's like, we have a spot. I need to know in 2 hours, or I'm going to the next person." And I had actually hoping to go. I had already taken off the time, So I already had the time off work. And so it's just like, yes, I'm going.
That's awesome.
But again, meeting people there, talking there, it's like, okay, I've got to get something else up and running, something separate from my job. I went back to one of the things I learned early on is like, okay, just write down like everything that you know how to do and you're good at.
Yes. I love that. That's good advice.
And it doesn't like, and it can be things you enjoy doing, but it doesn't have to be necessarily, because at some point, like if you're really good at something, you can come to like it sometimes.
Yep.
And then, and this is the thing that was really useful was then he had the thing has you do a 4 boxes.
Okay.
And it's like a grid. So there's lots of customers or there's not many customers. And then there's people pay a lot or people don't pay a lot.
Okay.
And if you have anything you can sell that's in the lots of people pay a lot for this, try that out.
Yes.
Otherwise, pick something in either there's not many people, but they pay a lot, or there's lots of people, but they don't pay very much.
Okay.
Anything in the you can't charge much for, and there's not a lot of people, it's a labor of love. It's not a business. You can't make a living doing it.
It's a hobby.
And so I had a list of 20 or 30 things.
Okay.
And over half of them were in that death zone.
Yep.
Nothing was in the Goldilocks zone. And so then it was just kind of like, okay, well, I've got these maybe 10 ideas. And part of it was, again, every dollar we don't send to the government is a big win, I figure.
Yes.
So I said, well, I'll try doing that. And I reached out to some people I knew who were lawyers, and they hired me. And then my very first customer who hired me, who didn't know me, was a guy who we had been talking on the TSP Discord.
Okay.
So he had never met me. He had never spoken with me in person. He just been chatting back and forth. And he's like, I'll give you a shot. But before we do that, could you prove you're a lawyer, please? It's like I took a photo of myself with like my business card and I sent it to him, and I sent him the bar page. Like, yes, I really am a lawyer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was it. It's like, okay, I got a business here. I got people willing to pay me money. And just been trying to grow it from there.
How's it been going so far?
Last year was actually really good. I managed to pick up a client every month. And some months more than that.
Nice.
Particularly the month after I was on Jack's show, I got a lot of people who contacted me.
That's good to know.
So that was nice. Honestly, I got a little lazy. I got really busy. Also, I was a speaker at Jack's workshop in 2021.
Sure.
So I got a lot of business from that, and I got kind of lazy with all that business, and then kind of didn't do my marketing very much. And this year has been not as good. I've had a few clients, but not as many. It's been picking up in the last few weeks. It's one of those things, again, it's like, especially when I only work with business people or people with real estate or something like that. Okay. I can't help a W-2 employee. Like, there's nothing anybody can do to help you to save on your taxes.
Right. Because so there's your first piece of advice. Start a business then, eh?
Right. And the second thing is, like, again, if you're only making $10,000 or $20,000 in your business, go make more money. Don't hire me. You're not making enough yet to worry about it.
Sure.
Especially if that's your only income, like $20,000, you're not paying any taxes yet.
Right.
Like if you're married and like literally there's like no taxes after the standard deduction. So don't worry about it. Go make more money. But yeah, once people get to $50,000, $60,000 a year, there's a lot I can do to help them. It can be little things like, oh, hey, fine, and fair warning, I'm an attorney. If I say something, talk to somebody else before you do it. This is not tax advice to you, listener, viewer.
It's just general tips at the moment.
Talk to a CPA, talk to a lawyer before you do this. But just setting up your business the right way. Okay. Setting up an LLC or a corporation and setting how you're going to be taxed can very easily, like, let's say you're making $60,000 a year.
Okay.
It's really easy for me to save you $4,000 just by setting up the right entity.
Really?
I had one client, much more successful, was making almost $300,000 a year. We actually split his company into 2 different companies.
Okay.
To tax them differently. And by doing that, I saved him $23,000.
Yes, sir.
And that's going to be $23,000 a year.
And he's making
every year
300,000.
That was what he was. That was his profits from his company.
Wow. So you saved him damn near 10%, not quite, but getting on 10% of his yearly.
Well, and that was just by splitting them apart and doing this one change. I actually did save him about 10% with everything I did. Wow.
And this is not illegal, is it?
No, this is I call it status jujitsu, using their own rules against them. It's setting up the business and following their rules, and yet at some point jumping through their hoops, which is a pain in the ass. I'm not going to do it for $10, but for $10,000, I'll jump through some hoops. I will. And again, like some of the returns, like, well, you should just not pay your taxes. Okay, that's fine. I want to own a house.
Right.
And if you don't pay your taxes, you can't get a mortgage.
Right. Do you like being free? Because eventually you'd end up in jail, would you not?
Again, my advice is not to risk it, but there's a lot of people who go years without paying taxes that nothing bad happens to them.
But it doesn't mean it couldn't, right? I mean,
right. And also at some point, the IRS is kind of known to catch somebody and then wait a couple years to actually prosecute them.
Okay.
Because now it's a more serious crime because it's not tax evasion for 1 year, it's tax evasion for 4 years or 5 years.
And they can, if they know about it and they pay attention, I'm guessing they can maybe prove intention at that point too, perhaps, or
correct. Like again, 1 year, it's like, oh, I forgot to file my taxes.
Right.
5 years in a row, it's like, unless you're really forgetful, that looks like intent.
I remember years ago, there was a pastor, I think he was in New Brunswick, and he was, whatever your feelings are, he was anti-abortion. So he chose not to pay his taxes, but he was very public about it, like going on the news. And, so he brought hellfire down on himself because he, beyond just not paying taxes, he brought all the attention to himself too.
Yeah. About the best way to get in trouble with the IRS is to publicly go out and tell people not to pay taxes, or that they don't have to pay taxes, or, oh, there's this loophole where you don't have to pay taxes. My favorite is, oh, the Constitution wasn't properly amended to allow them to collect income taxes.
So you mean
I actually agree with that argument logically. Like that, there is a logical argument where you can argue it was not properly ratified. But I don't care. Nobody cares. And this is my son.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Hi.
Hey, nice to have you. Always love seeing the kids on here. How are you? Oh, he probably can't hear me.
Yeah, I don't think he can hear you because it's on the headphones. Go see mom. But yeah, it's like, it doesn't matter if that's actually the law or not. It matters, are you going to go to prison? And you're going to go to prison if you go out and tell people not to pay taxes and don't pay your own taxes.
Yeah. Right. It doesn't matter. Like, so what you're telling me is, if I believe I'm a sovereign citizen, it doesn't matter.
Don't even get me started on the sovereign citizens.
Sorry. I just secured a bank property for somebody, and I was talking to the local town, and it was actually kind of funny because I was talking to a guy who worked for the government there, and it was almost like a secret code because we get talking, and I'm like, I believe all interactions should be voluntary. He's like, you mean taxation is theft? You work for the government? I won't, anyway. So they were telling me that the guy that used to live in this house was off his rocker. At least that's what they called it. Anyway, and they're like, "Are you familiar with sovereign citizens?" I'm like, and then I asked, "Well, where was he from originally?" They said Nova Scotia, and that's where I'm from originally. I was like, oh. So yeah. Anyway,
and again, like, don't get me wrong. There are some people who are in the sovereign citizen movement who they're a bit wacky, but their heart's in the right place. They're really trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, totally.
It's just very quixotic. It unfortunately has also drawn in that element of, like, they're not acting in good faith. They're just trying to cause problems for people. And I don't have time for that.
And when you're that open, again, it's the whole flaunting thing, right?
Yeah.
If you flaunt it long enough and hard enough, they're going to come down on you.
You reminded me with the taxation is theft. I was just watching a YouTube creator talking about how nerds also use code words to figure out who else nerds are, because you don't want to just like say, "Oh,
Yeah,
comic
okay."
books. And there's the religious term, the shibboleth,
Okay.
which is it's a Bible story where only the Israelites could say this word correctly.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
And so again, like taxation is theft. It's a little more obvious, but like there's definitely like things people can say, right? Like if somebody mentions, Ron Paul or
Yeah. Murray Rothbard, maybe to a lesser, but yeah, I get it.
or Mises or whatever. Like there's ways we can talk about things to figure out where other people stand sometimes, just to make sure we don't come off like the crack part ourselves.
Yeah. I really like the whole, I believe all interactions should be voluntary, because almost everybody believes that, right? But you can take that in like some different people's definitions of that can be really out there, right?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to start a conversation. I'm not sure it's a good way to find liberty lovers, because anybody can agree with it.
Oh yes, it's just a good what do you call it? Low impact way to start a discussion. I was blown away by, I didn't expect, he just like, oh, so you mean taxation's theft? I'm like, I don't think I've ever met somebody in the wild that just said that, but okay, cool. I'll go along with it.
It is actually interesting. There are a lot of people who work for the IRS who are not big fans of the IRS. It is a job to them. It's a well-paying job.
Sure.
So they can't afford to leave it. But the vast majority of them haven't drunk the Kool-Aid. They're not there trying to screw people over. They're there trying to do their job. And again, I hate complimenting the government in any way. But the IRS is better than most other tax authorities in the world. And I don't know what the Canadian system is like. But in a lot of tax authorities, including like the French and the British, their mandate is collect as much in taxes as possible.
Okay.
The IRS mandate is collect the taxes that are owed.
Okay.
So if there's a valid argument that a tax is not owed, they'll agree with you.
Whereas the Europeans are, the more the better, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So again, it's small favors, but I'll take it if they'll give it to me.
Arizona Renaissance Man had a question here. Not sure if it's one you can answer or not, but I'll bring it up. And he said, if running a sole proprietorship side hustle, can it help bring down the part owed from W-2 work?
It depends. So I can't give you a direct answer to that question. I can say that there are times that, yes, business losses can be used to offset W-2 gains. There are times when it can't work.
Okay.
This is a big deal in real estate, because if you buy a rental house and you're just collecting the rent, you can't deduct any losses on paper from your W-2 job.
Oh, okay.
But if you're a full-time real estate investor, and I know somebody who does this. She goes out, she finds apartments, she puts together a group of 30, 40 people to buy them, and then she actually runs the apartment, and like 6 apartments at a time, not like the day-to-day management, but like improvements and whatever.
Yep.
And she can use her paper losses such that her husband, who is a surgeon and makes over $250,000 a year, they have not had to pay any income tax in about 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
So again, it's like you can do it sometimes, you cannot do it sometimes. Usually, as long as you're actually working in the business, you can. There are some state-specific stuff for that as well, and that's another caveat. I can't give you advice about Arizona or California or Nevada or Tennessee or Kentucky. I'm licensed in Texas. I can give you federal advice, and I can give you Texas advice. So sometimes there are state-specific things that come up that I just can't talk about.
All the more reason for them to hire a tax advisor, right?
Exactly. Hire a tax advisor, and they can answer these questions for you.
Can you you've touched on it twice now, and I know you and I had a good conversation about it. I'm not sure how much you can share or talk about, but the rental properties that you're into and the package kind of thing you were talking about, can you elaborate a bit on that? Because I think that's really cool.
Sure. So it's commonly called a syndication. It's incredibly heavily regulated by the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission. And anybody who's not, this is one of those rare instances where it's like, I don't care about what the rules are. I think the rules are stupid. But anybody who's not following those rules is going to steal your money.
Okay.
So just the fact that they're not following the rules, like, don't trust them.
Fair enough.
But basically what somebody can do is they can find an apartment. It can be 10 units. It can be, I just saw a 700 unit deal.
Wow. So that's a package of a bunch of properties?
So it's 3 different apartment complexes that are all like in the same area, 700 units between them. So these people, they go out, they research it, they look at what other apartment complexes are doing. They know ways to increase the revenue, decrease expenses. They put an offer in, they get it under contract, and then they go to people with money and they raise the money. And again, how they raise the money, incredibly specific ways, what is and is not legal.
Right.
And then they buy the apartment complex. They usually get paid a percentage of the income to run it while it's being run. And they also get a percentage of ownership.
Okay.
So a normal one is 1% to 2% of the revenue every month they get paid to run it. And then maybe getting 10% of the ownership for finding the deal. Most of them also put their own money in as well. So they own more than 10%.
Can I ask, so my brain's running now. I didn't think of this before. Could you facilitate that deal without putting a lot of your own capital in?
So most people don't, because most people won't trust you if you're not putting your own money in it.
Sure, I get that.
And it costs money. Like just hiring the lawyers to do the paperwork costs about $25,000.
Okay.
So like you're $50,000 to $70,000 into the deal in expenses.
Okay.
Which, if the deal goes through, you'll be reimbursed. But if the deal falls apart, you're not going to be.
Okay.
And so I mean, you probably want 50, 60 grand in the bank to fund doing this, basically.
Okay.
But yes, it's totally legal to not actually put any more money than that into the investment. And it's very common for people to work together. So like that 700 unit deal, there wasn't one person. It was a team.
Yeah, that's what I was
people.
kind of getting. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a team of 6 people. And so maybe one of them didn't put any money in. Maybe they did a lot more sweat equity or whatever.
Cool. Yeah.
And so again, it's not uncommon for somebody more experienced to kind of be there, and that's an experienced person kind of doing more of the work, but they got the mentor there if something goes wrong. And again, that new person probably has less capital, so they're putting less money in it, or maybe no money at all.
I was just thinking out loud because I have lots of experience with the property management end of things, right? But yeah, I get it. That's cool. Okay.
And again, this business model, it works in the USA. It's totally different in other countries. It does not work in most countries at all.
Okay.
Just because it's flatly not allowed in many countries because it is a security. It's a security, so it's basically you have to go through like almost an IPO in a lot of countries, which is millions of dollars. At which point, it doesn't make any sense.
It's like because we talked. You bought a certain percentage, right? Is that how you got into it?
Correct. So in each of the 3 apartment deals I've been involved in, it was about 1% of the purchase price I was putting down. Again, it's none of them are exactly 1%, but it's close on all of them.
Okay.
But again, I was putting the minimum investment in. You know, there was in one of those deals, I knew somebody who had bought 10% of it.
Okay.
And usually there's actually a max. They don't want somebody to be like a 50% owner and then control it.
Right.
So usually 5 or 10% is the max they'll let any individual buy in, but that's deal by deal, and every deal is different.
That's cool. And and then you would make 1% of the profit or the returns each year?
Correct. So every quarter or every month, depending on the deal, I get a percentage of the money dispersed.
Okay.
Now they don't disperse everything. They hold some money in the bank for a rainy day.
Yep.
And then when it gets sold, I will get 1% of the sale.
So is this kind of like somebody who goes in and buys a business, fixes it up, and then sells it, or is this more of a long-term thing?
There's different models. Some people do this for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years.
Okay.
It's hard to get investors. Then that's usually a much smaller deal. Maybe it's like a 20-unit apartment that one person can do by themselves.
Okay.
Especially before the price run up, that might have been $1 million deal. So you need to come up with $200,000, which is not easy, but a human being can do.
Yep.
But obviously, if it's a $10 million deal, most people can't come up with $2 million or more. I work with a group. It's a large network of people that work together, and the goal is always 5 years or less hold.
Okay.
And in fact, the second unit I bought is tentatively going to close in July, and we bought it May of 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be a 38-month hold.
Yes, sir. And are there a lot of upgrades done in that time, or what's the idea behind it?
So the big thing, it's all a business. And so you evaluate based on the net operating income of the business.
Yep.
So anything you can do to increase your income or reduce your expenses is going to significantly increase the value.
Okay.
So some of it is updating units, going in, putting improvements in, and then raising the rent.
Yep.
And even if it costs you $10,000 to do it, if you can charge $100 a month more, you probably just made more than $10,000 in equity gain.
Yes.
Because of that net operating income increase.
Okay.
Some of it is finding new ways to make money. So the group I'm in, one thing they like to do is add covered reserve parking. And maybe cost $5,000 to cover 20 spots.
Okay.
And then you charge $20 a month.
Right. That's genius. And simple.
Again, that $20 a month, 20 spots, $400 a month, you get your money back in a year.
Yeah.
And now you have a nice net operating income increase.
That's
the other thing that a lot of people in my group do is they do water savings. So they'll go in, they'll replace the toilet with low flush models, they'll replace the all of the showers with low flow models. Because a lot of these places, at least some of the water is being paid for by, again, it's flowing through, but there's still the apartment complex paying for it.
Yep.
And so again, it's not that expensive to replace a toilet, and it can easily save you $10 a month in water usage sometimes.
And I'm betting that there's probably government programs out there that will subsidize some of that stuff.
There are also, especially one of the one that we're selling in a few months, God willing, we got a 0.25% reduction in our interest rate because we agreed to do certain green improvements.
Cool.
And so again, it's actually a pretty good loophole. Basically, we had to replace the toilets and put in Nest thermostats.
Yep. Okay.
And that was it.
Man, I love simple things like that. When you can find, like you said, either exist new income, you can create it, or find ways. Because what do they say? A penny saved, a penny earned. If you're saving a penny, that's money to the bottom line as well, right?
Yeah, in the tax business, we say if a penny saved is 1.3 pennies earned.
I love it. That's cool. So let's slide back a little then to the Agorist tax advice or tax advisor end of things. I don't know what kind of tips you can give, but what are some simple things people can do without, giving away your whole business model, but at least some simple things people can start with?
So, other than setting up your business the right way, sole proprietorship or S Corp or C Corp or whatever, which that's a little more complicated to know what's the best thing. The easiest way is find money you're spending already and to make it a business expense.
Okay.
So, for example, if you have a business and it's a real business, it's not oh, yes, I have a business, of course. No, you have customers, you actually have income.
Yep.
There is no reason to not have your business pay for at least part of your cell phone bill.
Okay.
There is no reason to not have your business pay part of your home internet bill.
Right.
There is no reason to not have your home business buy you a computer if you need one, or a laptop, or a tablet. And again, if it's something you need a new computer anyway, well, now it's a business expense.
Great.
And again, there are some rules about, well, sometimes it should be for business use only. But as people have pointed out a lot recently, like, well, lots of companies provide cell phones or pay for cell phones for their employees, and they can use that cell phone for personal use too.
Sure.
So there should be no prohibition for your company that you own providing you, the employee, a cell phone plan and letting you use it for personal use. Same with laptops. Like, there are lots of companies, it's probably rarer these days, but it was very common for a while. Like, oh yeah, this is your company laptop, but if you go home and type an email to grandma, nobody cares.
Right.
My favorite way of doing this is turning vacations into business expenses, as I think you have some recent experience with.
That's why I'm giggling. Yeah, absolutely. And my next one,
which I did as well, because my visit to LFTN was also a business trip for me.
Yes.
But find someplace you want to go, and the stereotypical one is going to Vegas.
Right.
Find a conference in your industry in Vegas, or that you can use in your industry.
Okay.
So, I'm a handyman. Well, I can't find a handyman conference in Vegas, but I can find a marketing conference in Vegas.
Yep.
Or a business conference in Vegas, or a tax conference in Vegas, or something you can do in your business.
Sure.
Sign up for the conference. Actually go to the conference. But a lot of these conferences, they're 8 a.m. till 1 p.m. or something.
Yep.
And then the rest of your time there is your own. But now, because it's a business trip, your airfare, your hotel,
right,
your rental car, your meals, all business deductions.
Yes, they are.
If your spouse is in the business with you, your spouse can also attend the conference, and everything's tax deductible. But if they don't, well, okay, you got to pay for their plane ticket separately and their food separately. But I'm sure they can stay in the room with you. They can use the rental car with you still. And I mean, it's really easy to have a $2,000 or $3,000 tax deduction on a vacation by doing it this way.
Yeah, I forgot we did that, but yes, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah.
And again, it's like any major city you want to go to, there are conferences that you can find. A lot of Caribbean spots, a lot of Central American spots that are great tourist destinations. There are lots of conferences that exist really kind of for this. Like, there's not a whole lot of people who really want to go to Vegas to learn about something. They want to go to Vegas.
Sure. Yeah.
But like LA has them all the time. Dallas has them all the time. There's lots of these legal conferences like in the Cayman Islands and Jamaica and the Bahamas, and cruises also. There's also cruises that do like, oh, we're doing this program on the cruise.
Oh. That's guaranteed design for that, isn't it?
Exactly. And so again, it's like, don't spend money on this just because you don't want to spend $1,000 to save $100 in taxes.
Right.
But if it's something you want to do anyway, it's a no-brainer.
Sure.
And so those are the types of things. Like, look at what you're spending money on now in your life. And I totally have stolen this from another tax advisor. The question is not, is this deductible? Right. The question is, how can I make this deductible?
I like that. Sure.
And another one I stole from him is, if you want to change your tax, you need to change your facts.
Okay.
But it's just a little bit of work up front, and setting things up the right way can be huge. And so again, I was recently talking with a brand new client about, oh, you want to visit your parents? Well, you're a consultant who works with people all over the country. Schedule 2 or 3 in-person visits with your clients when you go visit your parents. Now, that may not be enough. There are rules for what qualifies as a business trip, but it's a good start towards, okay, you would have an argument this is a business trip. And again, if it's a trip you want to make anyway, plus how much would your clients love to get to meet you in person, depending on your business. It can be good for your business as well. But it's like literally, like, and in his case, he's going to drive there, so he's going to get to deduct all the mileage.
Oh, yeah. So so say for instance, this client who's going to visit his parents booked three trips, or three in-person meetings with clients, right? So, and now I don't want this to sound illegal because I don't mean it this way, but that only matters if he gets audited, right? Because and beyond that, if he does get audited, he now has justification for why he did it. So the worst case they're going to do is take away that deduction, right?
Well, the worst case is they say it's fraud,
Okay.
and there are penalties and interest and etc. But that's unlikely to happen in that situation because, okay, you were wrong about the law, but it was a reasonable mistake.
Right. I guess sorry. Yeah, because worst case.
So like that's to a really extreme example. He's there. He's visiting his parents for 2 weeks, and he visits one client while he's there.
Right.
IRS is going to say hell no.
Okay.
Because they want you to work a majority of the day, which is 4.5 hours, a majority or on all of the work days that you're there. So again, if it's Thanksgiving, well, you get there Wednesday, you work one day, and then Thursday, well, that's not a business day. Friday, that's not a business day. Saturday, that's not a business day. This is American Thanksgiving. I know you guys have a slightly different.
No.
But it's like, that's not a business day. So like you can work one day for that 5 or 6 day visit and it's fine.
Right.
Probably. Again, talk to your CPA, talk to your advisor, talk to your attorney. But yes, 98% of the time, and I kind of did just make that number up, but it's about right. It's not even going to be an audit. It's going to be you get a letter from, and people call this an audit, but it's not. It's a letter from the IRS saying, this seems sketchy to us. Provide some proof or evidence that this is legitimate.
Okay.
And I've had this happen to me 3 times in my life. Or actually one time it was just a mistake. I had put in some numbers wrong in the tax return.
Sure.
And 2 of the 3 times I actually ended up getting money back from the IRS.
Yes, sir.
Like, oh, yes, with the correct information, we actually owe you money. And the 3rd time it was like $300 I owed them.
Okay.
So yeah, when you get the letter from the IRS, don't ignore it. Don't throw it in the trash, but don't have a heart attack either. A lot of the time, again, it's like, well, and sometimes like one of the letters I got was, we think you owe us $60,000. This was a week before I took the bar exam. So don't freak out about that because I filled out. I was doing some stock trading at the time, and I had put in my basis wrong, so they thought everything was profits, but it wasn't. So don't freak out. If it's a small thing, $200, $300, $400, take care of it yourself.
Yep.
If it's $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and maybe you really screwed up, hire somebody to take care of it for you. Because I guarantee you, they will save you more money than you pay them. But yeah, like really, you want to keep. It's documents. You need to be able to prove your thing is for business.
Sure.
So they're going to want to know, like if you say, oh yeah, I had 5 client meetings out there and just happened to visit my parents while I was there, they're going to want to know their names. They're going to want to know when you met with them. I met with them 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on this day. When it comes to expenses, a credit card receipt or a credit card statement's not enough. They want the receipts.
Okay.
Because they want to know the itemized things. Like they don't want to just see, oh, it's a $70 charge at a restaurant.
Right.
They want to see what was on the restaurant. Was it 1 meal, 2 meals, 3 meals? Because again, maybe some of those meals are deductible. Maybe some of them aren't. Do not keep the original receipts. Make digital documents. Make digital copies for the love of God. Because most of those receipts don't last more than 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and those thermal papers tend to fade pretty quick, don't they?
So, and here's my quick tip for that. If you have 50, 60, 70 expenses like that a month, find a software you like to store it. Expensify is the go-to, but there's other good ones out there.
Okay.
But if you're somebody who has 5 or 6 or 7, just take a photo of it with your phone and email it to yourself.
Yep.
And then it's saved in your email, which is probably saved on the cloud somewhere. and then put a label or something on. I do use Gmail, the Gulag.
Yep, whatever. Yep.
But I put a label on it saying this is a business expense, and then I put it for this tax year. And so then once a month, I go back and I do my accounting, and I say, okay, I'm going to download all these photos onto my computer. This is my monthly expenses. I'm going to put it in a spreadsheet. Here's what I spent. Or actually, I did just upgrade to QuickBooks finally about 2 months ago. Like you don't have to have fancy software for any of this. That's the other thing. Like Excel's great. Simple email programs are great. It's like you don't need these fancy software when you're starting out.
Are you an iPhone user? Or
I am.
Yeah, me too. And I don't know if you've seen this, but in one of the latest iOS updates, pictures, you can literally copy and paste text out of pictures now.
Yeah, it's in the Notes app, right?
Well, it's built directly natively into the images, your photo app now too. And it'll even do handwriting. I did that the other day. My wife sent me a picture of my sister-in-law hand wrote a grocery list, and I was able to copy and paste it into a text document. So
I had not seen that. I know it was maybe 3-4 months ago they added something to Notes that you can scan a page.
Yes, this now you can. Oh, it's cool.
And it's actually like it's better than the scanner I had probably 5 years ago that was a standalone scanner. It's kind of magic.
I remember my first scanner I got that had OCR was like in 2001 or 2002. And you're like, okay, if it gets like 75% of the words right, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. And now it's like, oh, got a word wrong. Stupid software.
I know. It's like, but yet spell check or autocorrect on iPhone. Anyway, don't get me started. But so you were talking a little bit about hiring a tax advisor. And I think I've heard you talk about this a little before, maybe. What's the difference between a tax advisor and a tax lawyer? Is that right? Or a tax attorney?
Right. So most people, when they want a tax attorney, they either want to sue the IRS because they want to say some regulation is not legal, or they want to get it interpreted before they do something.
Okay.
Or they've had criminal charges filed against them by the IRS.
Okay.
And they're looking to defend themselves. A tax advisor can be an attorney or a CPA. In America, in the States, you have to be licensed as a CPA or a lawyer to legally give tax advice.
Okay.
But what a tax advisor does is I meet with you now to set up your business now, so that when you file your taxes next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you pay less.
Okay.
So the tax advisor is kind of the upfront defense, versus the tax lawyer is the after the fact, either the defense or, again, sometimes, and it's usually big companies, suing is like, well, we don't think we owe this tax. So the way it works is you have to pay it, but then you can sue them saying it's not actually owed.
Okay. To get it back.
And there's ways you don't have to do that, but that's like the smart way to do it if you can afford it.
Okay.
And so that's what a lot of tax attorneys do. Or the other thing is they again, sometimes they'll just you had the audit, it was determined you owed $80,000 7 years ago, and now the new attorney is coming in to try to negotiate an agreement to get it maybe done for cheaper.
Okay.
So yeah, I do not do any of those things. I would love to do those things. I just can't do that while I have my current day job, because those are all things that I need to be able to go to court hearings for. And my current employer might object if I had to say, hey, I got to take 2 hours off to go do this other thing.
That makes sense. Sure.
In the same way. So, I'm not an accountant. I don't file people's taxes for them. I don't do the accounting for them at the end of the year. I am considering actually adding that onto my business.
Really? Okay.
That's really going to depend on how many people I have who want me to do it next year.
Okay.
Because if it's 1 or 2 people, it's not worth my time.
Right. But
if 20 people want me to do it, okay, I'll hire somebody to do it, I'll review it, and it makes sense then. But so most CPAs, they're just crunching the numbers.
Right.
Now, some of them, and I'll name, and if you have $1 million business, don't hire me, go hire this guy.
Right.
Tom Wheelwright
Okay.
is one of the best in the business. He's actually Robert Kiyosaki's CPA.
Okay. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, which I'm not a big fan of Kiyosaki, but Lord knows he's made a lot of money. He's got good CPAs.
Yeah, sure he does.
Can't remember where I was going with that. Oh, but so he actually is a CPA who is a tax advisor. But most CPAs, you bring them your paperwork and they tell you what you owe.
You're right.
If they're a really good CPA, they'll point out, oh, hey, if you had done this, it would have saved you $500. You should do this next year.
Okay.
And again, like Jack Spirko, he has a CPA who's a tax advisor. He actually meets with her on a somewhat regular basis to talk about what should I do to save money on taxes. So there are CPAs who do this. There are attorneys who do this. There are benefits to each. If you have a CPA who does it, they're probably also will do your taxes.
Okay.
The benefit to me being a lawyer is, as a lawyer, I have attorney-client privilege.
And why is that important?
Because anything you talk about with your CPA, the IRS can find out. So if you have a phone call and you leave a message for your CPA and they save that in your file,
yep.
If the IRS is auditing you, they may be able to get that message.
No shit.
If they're prosecuting you for tax evasion, they will get that message.
Did not know that. Okay.
And there is no privilege for a CPA at all.
Okay.
No, they can't just disclose things around to people, but like basically if the IRS issues a subpoena, they will say, fight the subpoena or I have to give it to them.
Okay.
And so, especially for some of the, shall we say, people who want to play it a little closer to the edge.
Yep, I understand.
You are going to follow the law, but you're going to pay as little as possible. Being able to talk with an attorney about, well, what if this, what if that, hypotheticals, that all stays confidential.
Okay.
Whereas with your CPA, if they make notes about all that stuff, there are those notes there, which could become Exhibit 1 in the case against you for tax evasion.
So there's no hypothetical conversations with CPAs then?
There's hypothetical conversations, but it may, again, it's like there's hypothetical conversations that aren't so hypothetical.
Right. Yeah. The wink and the nod conversations.
And at some point, I can't have, if it's flat out, somebody's asking me, how do I commit tax fraud? I can't have the conversation with them. But if it really is just, well, would this work? Is this allowed? I can totally have a conversation with them.
As a lawyer?
Of the time I can tell them, no, it's not. No, it doesn't work. Great idea. No. But it remains completely confidential. And in the States, it's the strongest privilege there is. There are exceptions to attorney-client privilege. They are so vanishingly small, they basically don't exist.
Okay. So you mentioned that. I got to ask you then. So what happens if you as a lawyer and your client comes to you and says, how do I perform tax evasion? Do you excuse yourself? Are you now? I mean, I'm not saying you would ever do this, but are you legally allowed to tell them how to do that, or are you aiding and abetting? Or
so that is in fact the most common exception to attorney-client privilege.
Okay.
If you hire me with the goal of committing fraud upon another person, and I aid you in doing that, there is no privilege, and I am a co-conspirator and am liable myself for the crime.
So, not to go too far down a rabbit hole, how do they differentiate that? Do you know what I mean? Like, so how can the law access that at that point?
That's incredibly complicated.
Okay.
What actually the short form is, they would file criminal charges against me and my client.
Okay.
At that point, a judge, and only a judge, not the clerk, not the staffer, not the judge, I would give that judge access to my file.
Right. And then
that judge would get to look through my file and would make a determination about, is there, and I forget what the standard is, but it's a high standard. Basically, is there a lot of evidence that this was, in fact, a criminal conspiracy and not somebody hiring an attorney?
Okay.
At which point that judge would make the determination that there is no privilege in this case.
Right. And it wouldn't extend beyond the scope of that case either, I'm guessing. Is that
correct? It would not be all my files. It would not even be everything for that client necessarily.
right?
And that judge would make a determination. Maybe these 7 documents, if the 1,000 documents in the file are relevant to this case and are not privileged, they get these 7 documents.
So they're protecting client, lawyer-client privilege beyond this certain scope, I guess, is the idea.
Exactly. So or the other thing is, you can be a moron like Trump and you can waive attorney-client privilege. And
why would you do that? You never would?
Because you're an idiot.
Okay, that's what I assumed you're getting at.
I like a politician doing it to show he has nothing to hide might be a not completely idiotic idea, except he had things to hide, so It was still stupid.
That's like saying I'll talk to a cop because I have nothing to hide, right? I mean, you're still getting. Is it almost always better to keep your mouth shut, or am I wrong about that?
So the advice, and my father did a very good job when I was a child. Never talk to the cops. Never consent to a search.
Okay.
The current advice, and this is not my wheelhouse, but the current advice tends to be specifically assert your right to remain silent.
Okay.
Because the fact that somebody is silent has been used against them in courts.
Oh, I see.
But if you say, I am asserting my legal right to remain silent, that cannot be used against you.
Right. And from that point on, whereas
it's like, again, if it's a traffic stop, talk to the cop. Don't be a jerk.
I get it. Yeah.
But any sort of you've been taken down to the station, hire an attorney, or you can get the public defender. And actually, a lot of public defenders are really good at lawyers.
Cool.
But some of the best lawyers out there are public defenders because they get a lot of experience.
Sure.
Do not talk to the cops. It cannot help you. It can never help you for you to talk to the cops.
That's what I was thinking.
At the point that you've, again, been taken down to the station, you are a suspect.
Right.
It cannot help you. Your lawyer talking to them on your behalf can help you sometimes.
Okay.
But no, it's definitely, and it's unfortunate. I mean, there are some really good YouTube videos. God, one of them came out when I was in law school. And it was cool. It was a police officer, and then it was a lawyer, both talking to a bunch of law students.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've watched it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and again, it's now over 10 years old. But it's fantastic, and it really is like the cop, especially, is like, okay, great. You just talked yourself out of what I was going to charge you with, but you admitted to 4 other crimes.
Right.
It was
eye-opening.
And then again, if it's the sheriff and you know the sheriff because it's a small community,
yeah,
that's a different situation where you need to make a decision as to what you do. But if you're in Dallas or Houston or LA or New York City or Chicago or Toronto or Calgary, and it's just some random cop, and I don't know if you have the right to remain silent in Canada. I assume you do, but who knows?
I'm not sure. I've only watched American Law and Order. I don't know much about
it. It's not going to help you. And the cops are not your friends, even if they seem like your friends.
Yeah. Hey, buddy, how are you? Yep. I always told my kids, for the most part, that you catch more flies with honey. So, being polite and not aggressive, and put your hands up, put your hands on the steering wheel, roll your window down, and just be polite and pull over immediately. Those kind of little things, because it's the only minuscule chance you have of getting out of a ticket. Beyond that,
And again, at some point, if getting that ticket's going to ruin your life, you've already made a huge mistake.
Yeah,
it's like, in that case, again, if you talk yourself out of it, great. But yeah, the people start yelling at a cop when they get pulled over. It's like, you're not helping yourself, and you probably are hurting yourself.
Holding their phone up and screaming, "Am I being detained?" That kind of stuff. Yeah.
And again, even that, if the cop actually has been holding you there for 20 or 30 minutes,
sure.
Okay, maybe you start doing that, but don't start with that.
I got another funny question to ask you. Have you ever made one of those cheesy lawyer TV commercials?
I have not been on a TV commercial. If you search on YouTube, you can find some videos when I had my own firm.
Okay.
Um,
Good enough. I think that'll be it.
They're not great, but they're not terrible.
That's okay. They're gold, man. I love lawyer commercials. I don't know why. They're just, yeah.
Yeah, these, and every market's different, and every state has different rules about what is and is not allowed in a commercial advertisement for lawyers. So that gets interesting. But yeah, most firms in Texas, it's just the owner, mostly because they don't want to deal with what if somebody quits and now they're in your commercial still.
Fair enough.
And like there gets to be some legal issues with that as well. So it's very complicated. But no, I've not been in any of the really cheesy daytime TV commercials. I honestly don't even know if my current firm advertises on TV. I know they advertise on billboards and a lot of other places, but
is your picture on any of the billboards?
No.
Okay.
Just the owner.
Fair enough. Yeah. That's cool. So, okay. 2 more, we've been an hour and a half, so we'll kind of wind down here in a second, but so what would, how does somebody find a tax advisor? That might be the way to start with.
So depending on your business, depending on your state, you may want somebody local. Starting with a Google search for tax advisor, my city, you may find some people. I've actually found Texas has a listing of CPAs on a site somewhere, and it will actually say what they do. Oh, I do business law, I do personal stuff, and one of the choices is tax advisor.
Okay,
so that's the place to start. If you are, especially in a state that doesn't have a state income tax, you don't need somebody local because you're really only concerned about the federal stuff at that point.
Okay,
probably. So, the other thing is talk to other people in your industry. Again, I know you are a handyman and you know lots of other handymen.
Yes.
So if you were looking for a tax advisor, I would tell you start off with asking the other Canadian handymen do any of them have a good CPA or attorney who's a tax advisor?
That's a great idea. Sure.
Because there are definitely I've worked with all sorts of types of companies. It's a lot easier for me to work with a software consultant because I've had 5 software consultants as clients.
Right.
I know most of what is there. If you come to me as, some random thing that's very specialized, and actually I just had they're an entertainer. They're an actor, and they do some voice acting in they're not a big actor or anything. But it's what do I know about entertainment law? Basically nothing. What do I know about I know the basic rules of how to set up a company to do this, but are there special rules? I don't know. I'm going to have to do research. So starting with other people in your industry is a good place to start.
Okay.
Of course, obviously, anybody, if you want to.
So in the comments, I think they're trying to pick out a nickname for you, unless you already have one. So
yeah, I go by the Agorist Tax Advisor. My website is agoristtaxadvice.com. Avoid, Hunter. Avoid, not evade. It's legal to avoid taxes.
Yes. Yeah. Evade. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's great. So yeah.
For anybody listening to this, and I think it's going to be in the show notes, but you can book a 15-minute conversation with me, agoristtaxadvice.com /Toolman.
Yes, it is in the YouTube, it's in the Facebook, and in the podcast feed. So it'll be everywhere for people to grab. So
and that integrates my calendar. You can book a time and talk with me. And basically that's 15 minutes of, can I help you? Do you want me to help you?
Cool.
And legitimately about a third of the phone calls are like, you know what? You're not there yet. Grow your business more, or just I'm sorry, your business is so specialized. It was actually a financial advisor. And it's there are so many regulations in your business. I don't want to give you good tax advice that causes you trouble with the SEC.
Sure. Yeah.
So that, find somebody who knows those rules to help you out. Okay. And then it's, again, are you in a place where it makes sense to hire me to work with me? I work with people basically any place in the USA. I have some caveats for California and New Jersey because they have some very specific rules. And they have a couple of exceptions of what is and is not allowed.
Okay.
But otherwise, again, anybody, federal tax advice. I've worked with many people. I've worked with farmers, homesteaders, again, software engineers. I've worked with people who have companies providing entertainment. It's like they book like weddings and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
And other things, like weddings is their biggest thing. I've worked with multiple consultants. I've worked with people with e-commerce businesses. You know, it's not everything, but it's kind of probably 80% of what's out there I've worked on. And again, I'll tell you, if I can't help you, I'll tell you that. I don't want to waste your time or your money.
There you go. Well, I'm your
Yeah. And as Hunter said, like I definitely I actually have a shirt. I'm an attorney. That doesn't mean I'm your attorney.
I love it. Yeah.
But I love helping people. I love helping people in these communities. You know, you, Nicole, Jack. That's actually the reason I go by the Agorist tax advisor is I hate cowards.
Yep.
I don't want to work with the people who are like, well, I don't want to do anything that might raise any red flags.
Sure.
It's like, okay, then you don't want tax advice because unfortunately, like there's not a lot of black and white.
Right.
There's a lot of gray. Like 10% is black, 10% is white, 80% is gray. And if you're not willing to work somewhere in the gray, I don't want to work with you. Now, I'm not saying you have to go all the way right next to the black.
Right.
And there's different decisions. Again, maybe I'm here on this one and maybe I'm here on this one. But I hate cowards. If you're not interested in paying less in taxes, why are you paying me?
Love it. Can I ask you one more? So not necessarily for you, but if somebody's looking for a tax advisor, what would they expect to pay perhaps? Like I just like it does, kind of ballpark either, somebody that's way too low is going to obviously probably be shit and somebody might be hosing them too. Right. So what's a reasonable kind of idea?
So a lot of that, and it's going to depend upon the size of your business to some extent. Okay. If you're making 50 grand, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a tax plan is not unreasonable. If you have a company making $1 million a year, it might be $40,000 or $50,000.
Okay.
Again, like I know Tom Wheelwright has a company and a lot of people who work for him, but if he's your tax advisor, I think it's $100,000 retainer.
Fair enough.
And again, that's not the total fee. That's just the retainer.
Sure. So it's an investment, but
what you want to look at is any tax advisor should be able to save you more in taxes in the first year than you're paying.
Okay. That's the meat I was looking for there. That
and again, like you might not actually be net positive in the first year because maybe there's other expenses, like I need to set up an LLC or something.
Here's a good one. You can
Hunter asked your fees would be a write-off. 99% of the time, anything you pay your tax advisor is a business expense.
Okay.
The only time they're not going to be that I can think of that's common is if you're not actually in business yet. So if I'm getting ready to start a business, I'm hiring this person, it might not be deductible. But once you're in business, absolutely, just like hiring your CPA to do your taxes, hiring somebody to help you plan your taxes is a tax write-off. And so again, like even if you break even the first year, you actually probably come out ahead once that's accounted for.
Cool. All right. That's good because I mean, if they're not within a year or two, if they're not saving you more money than they're charging you, maybe you look for a different one. Is that what you're saying?
And I won't take a client if they're not going to be ahead within 2 years.
Okay.
So I've had 1 or 2 clients who it's like, well, I wouldn't hire me if I were you, but I'll take your money because you're not going to break even a year, but you'll break even within 2 years.
Sure.
But if it's not within 2 years, I won't even take the client. Again, it's go out, build your business, make more money, and then come talk with me.
Okay. I love your upfrontness. I appreciate that.
and again, it's like I don't want to waste your time, and I have limited time too. I don't want to do a lot of work and save $500 for you when I could save somebody else $5,000.
Are you maybe I don't. Would do you have plans at some point to be fully self-employed? Do you think, or maybe not? I don't want to get you in trouble here. Is that maybe like
I have a lot of different possible plans for the future.
Cool. I can live with that.
One of them is I become a partner in my current firm, and I probably stop doing this, and I just go back to doing personal injury full time.
Okay.
One is I finally get to the point where we're getting 4 or 5 clients a month, and I'm making enough money I can live off of this. And I have a conversation with my current boss about, hey, I love you, and I'd like to keep doing this, but I can't do it full time anymore.
Cool.
I don't think I'll ever stop doing personal injury. I'm good at it.
Sure.
I'm really good at it. I've done a lot of good things for a lot of people.
Sounds like it's fulfilling for you.
Yeah, I just settled my biggest case I've ever settled 2 days ago, Friday.
Okay.
And that was really exciting. And helping people who have been injured. Again, I was injured in a boating accident. There is some pay it forward there kind of going on as well. So I wouldn't ever want to stop doing what I'm doing.
Sure.
But definitely having the ability to be more in control of my own destiny would be nice.
That I can live with it. So how do people find you, Matt?
So again, agorist.taxadvice.com is my website.
Okay.
/Toolman to set up a conversation with me, 15-minute free, 100% free conversation. I am on Float. I'm on MeWe. I have just created my Facebook page, but there's literally nothing there yet, so not a good place to follow me. Also, I'm on the Toolman Tim's Telegram.
Yes.
And several Discord channels. I'm most active probably on the TSP Discord.
Okay.
So find me any of those places. I'm totally willing to talk to people. I when it comes to tax advice, I like phone calls, but simple questions. I do a lot of things on Discord or Telegram or Signal or text messaging or whatever you want to do.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. And is it okay? That Toolman link, can I share that tomorrow, through social?
Please, yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I will. I'll make sure get that out there because I appreciate you doing that for the community too, because it gives somebody a low impact, a no commitment kind of way to just chat and see if it works for them or not. Right.
Exactly. Only thing I'd ask again, if you don't have a business yet, don't bother.
Yep.
I used to work with people who don't have businesses, and then my first 5 clients, none of them actually started their business.
Okay.
And so now, if you don't have a business yet, I can't do it. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to me.
I get it. No, that's cool. Well, thanks, Matt. Before I forget, I remembered tonight, everybody, but I need to do the spin for the giveaway. So you're welcome to hang around in the background, Matt, or if you got to go, you can jump off too. So
no, it's fine.
Okay. I'll be back with you here and we'll see if we can do a screen share, and I'll do my closing while I'm doing that. So thanks again, Matt. I appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, guys, that was awesome. So what we are going to try to do, if I remember to leave these up here, we are going to I'm going to share the screen, because if I don't do this tonight, Erin will literally shoot me. So I don't want to do that to her. So last night we had the very first Toolman, I don't know, you want the Telegram group, whatever. Hey, there's Matt again. Yep. We got we're going to spin the big wheel. When Chris, Angry American, was on the show a couple of weeks ago, afterwards, he told me that he'd have a couple of autographed books that he'd be willing to send out to workshop members. So I did a social media blast where people sent in their favorite book. And then I'm also going to do a spin just for the members of the Toolman Tim post-apocalyptic book club. So here we go. This is the first one. Let me see if this is the one that has, let me see. Okay. Yep. So the first one here is everyone. This is everyone from the group, plus the people who have entered through social media. So we'll give it a spin. Here we are. Let's see who the winner is. Erin may not still be on here, but that's okay. And we have, Lou, right? There we are. Okay. So Lou was the first one. I've got the last name saved in here, but so that'll be, I'm not sure how long it'll take to get it sent out, but that'll be an autographed copy. And I think you'll be able to get it personalized of Going Home, the first book in the book series. And now this one is just for the members of the Toolman Tim Post-Apocalyptic Workshop book club. So here we go. Give it a spin. I love this random wheel generator. It's great. Somebody's still following us over on Facebook. We just got a thumbs up there. Oh, Rachel. She was on our live stream last night. That is awesome. So that's our two winners, guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining and being a part of it. Sorry we had to do this on the tail end of Matt, but it was fun. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you. This is awesome. I know it's harder to drop in for live streams in the summer because we're all just busy doing everything. But for the time you come in and hang out with me, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks again to Matt. And guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.